we're on the brink of collapse society because there is no way that model is sustainable. It's just not.
Well, there's no society ever in history where when the populace is backstabbing each other, that society thrives.
And if America were to fail in the next 5 years, the entire history of the world will say that was the worst failed experiment ever. Because to only make it 400 years and collapse is actually a joke. Right?
You're not wrong.
Most civilizations last thousands of years.
This is a grand experiment, this America.
400 years and failure means that the whole idea and premise of it never made sense.
So should we go back to a dictatorship? Because those seem to be lasting like thousands of years.
I mean, it's pretty crazy that if U.S. were to fall because we infight our way to chaos and end, it's like, holy shit.
Maybe
this whole like democracy thing doesn't work. And the worst part of that is I actually believe in democracy. We don't have a true democracy. So how can we know if the democracy works or not if we never actually tried it?
Maybe fascism is the answer.
I mean, benevolent dictatorships work all over the country, by the way.
Yeah.
And there are certain countries where communism actually works. The idea that only one type of government...
I know so many commenters are going to be like, I did not just hear Matt Kim say their communism works.
The idea that one type of political ideology works as a blanket for all countries and all demographic regions of all geographical places in the world is like the biggest lie ever. Everyone's people are different, the culture is different, the history is different, their resources are different, their geographical location is different. There are different political ideologies that are best for that region.
Your logic is sound.
But this idea...
Can I back up? Just for everyone who didn't catch the sophisticatedness of what you've just said, how sophisticated it was. What you're essentially saying is that for different species and different people groups located in different geographic locations, one size fits all isn't the solution?
It's definitely not the solution.
So you're saying that America exporting democracy and trans rights to sub-Saharan Africans is not the right recipe for success?
But we also know that it's not actually their ideology they're spending, because again, El Salvador, we have no problem with the dictator. Saudi Arabia, we have no problem with the dictator.
Most of the
Qatar, we have no problem with them.
Yeah, most of the Middle East
UAE,
are
we have no problem
oligarchs.
with them. Yeah. We have no problem with any of that.
They're just royal families. Yeah.
So this whole, they're trying to inject American ideology into these. And no, they're not. It's just money laundering.
Yeah.
It's just money laundering.
Yeah.
To say it's anything else is ridiculous.
Yeah. No doubt. But I hope people haven't missed the point. No single solution is the solution for every distinct people group. For example, you probably want to have a benevolent dictatorship leading a society of retards.
Well, or a society that's maybe war-torn, maybe a society that's extremely poor or retard. Yeah. You need someone to lead and set up the structure for them. It actually works. Singapore being the greatest example of that. Lee Kuan Yew comes in, takes an extremely poor country, becomes a dictator, fixes the entire education system, has the highest GDP, more than America now.
Yep.
Everyone is educated. The streets are clean. Everything worked out. And they went from like one of the poorest countries in the world to one of the richest countries in the world. And it took one dictator to do it.
Yeah. So
was he harsh at times? Yes.
Fair enough. So
but he turned the whole place around.
Right. So for the low sophisticated, low IQ, a benevolent dictatorship makes sense. If you live in a culture with a species group who are highly industrious, high IQ, deeply sophisticated, and can use their hands to create industry and to create products and services, you probably don't want to have a dictatorship because you'd squash creativity and entrepreneurship. And so again, very simple dichotomy here is that different political regimes make sense for different people groups is what you're saying, Matt.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying exporting democracy and Captain America is probably not the best way of helping the world out.
Instead of trying to figure out how to run this imperialistic model of taking over countries, injecting your politics into other countries, trying to change it for your betterment, instead of sending out trillions of dollars into the world to promote democracy, why not actually run a real democracy within the borders and fix the problems within the country. I feel like that's what Trump ran on. And I think that's why I'm so upset, because that's what people wanted. Stop trying to fix other people's problems and fix our problems.
Thanks, Jordan Peterson.
It's so simple of an idea.
Clean your room.
Clean your room.
Don't be telling other people what to do when your house is a mess.
Fix your own problems.
Fix your shit.
Stop lying to your population. Stop propagandizing your population. We're seeing that turning point on the pay.
Ugh. Everybody's on the pay, man.
Everybody's getting paid.
Everybody's on the take, man.
Every single major account that you can think of, they're getting paid by the government to tell you what they want you to think. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And no one is like, oh my gosh, they're all propagandists. No, he's really funny.
he twiddles my diddle.
He was really good at yelling at like college students.
Yeah, and you know what? He really ripped into Ben Shapiro.
Which Ben Shapiro is getting money.
Yep, of course.
The United States is funding all the Holocaust museums in the United States and funding universities all over the world. And I'm like, dude, our education system is broken, is breaking, but yet we spend our tax dollars to fund universities in other countries. Why? How difficult is it to just say, let's just fix our schooling because our education system sucks?
It does make a lot of sense, man. It makes a lot of sense.
Why not educate and figure out how we can improve the schools, other places that you say are maybe lower IQ or retards? Like, why don't we get them smarter?
You can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Of course you can.
No, you can.
If you can teach them and they can learn.
If you have an IQ of 70, you are at a functional level where being industrious and a productive member of society is a far gone is not going to happen. Right. There's a reason why, which is fascinating because no one likes to bring this up in the time of need when it actually matters. There's a reason why there's a minimum IQ standard for the military. Because if you're under the IQ standard, then you are functionally useless to the military. Let's just talk about that for a second. Why is there a minimum threshold of intelligence quotient? I'm saying that wrong. IQ. Why is there a minimum? Because the military themselves cannot use people under a particular threshold, man. There are some people that are just not going to be useful to society. And if you look at species groups across the planet, you will find some species groups in massive land masses where they literally have an IQ on average lower than what we in the military would accept as someone who is functionally capable of doing the job.
We are running into a new age of artificial intelligence. Most people will not have to work.
Okay.
They will take a lot of jobs. We don't need to train people to understand technology at a high level. We need to train people on how to accept a certain culture to be able to survive in society properly. This is not high IQ, low IQ stuff. This is just humanity.
But again, if you're going over to certain areas, like say Africa, there's certain.
I don't want to deal with Africa. I want to deal with the United States.
Okay, fine. Let's stay in America then. In America, we are importing low IQ species groups into America.
Stop importing them.
Good. We're back to the border. So no porous border. Get rid of all the illegals, whether you were here one day or whether you're here 15 years. You've made a cognitive decision to come into America without the right paperwork and due diligence. So get out of here. You might say, oh, my homie who employs 80%. Why is he employing 80% illegals?
Because no one else will do the job.
Maybe he should choose a different business to be in.
Or maybe we should choose the population that chooses not to work and teach them that they can also have these jobs.
Oh.
And maybe this minimum wage thing is bullshit?
Oh, man. Shoot. You mean when we create blanket policies across a variable system of humans that it doesn't always work out, Matt?
Exactly.
Dadgummit, shit. It sounds like we almost have to be thoughtful about policies before we make the policies.
Instead of looking for patchwork policies to temporary solutions, because again, it's this whole thing that especially presidents, they only work in 4 years, so they actually don't care what happens 5 years later. Yeah. It's all 4 years at a time, 4 years at a time. And there's no continuity. It's like if you get a good leader, actual good leader, that's like a really empathetic leader, strong leader that understands like the embetterment of the people, not embetterment of business and embetterment of kind of the oligarchy. Maybe we actually need one for like 10 years.
Oof. Let me give you a thought experiment. My final question of the day. Do you think America should experiment with fascism?
No.
Why?
I think it's too large of a country.
You think so?
Yeah, I think you can't make a political change because the country is just too large. This is the political landscape that's been chosen, that's been built on, and it will either live or die by that standard. If you make any change, then the whole system, whole experiment will be considered a failure.
Okay, so follow-up question, because now you've intrigued me. Do you think this American experiment, with the trajectory in which we are headed now, succeed or fail?
Fail.
Oh, fuck.
I think that the idea of democracy is amazing. I think the idea that, this constitutional, fine. The idea that people's voice matters, that people debate and argue, and that the best ideas and what the people actually want are represented by our government and they enact on the policies based on what people want. I think that idea is actually phenomenal.
That's a great
what democracy
idea.
is supposed to be.
In theory, it's a great idea.
We've never just actually tried it. Majority of the country does not want to support war in Ukraine. Majority of the country does not want to support war in Israel. But yet, here we are. Majority of the country does not want federal funding to go all over the world to fund all these random programs. But yet, this is what we do.
Here we are.
Majority of the country do not want it to be legal for the government to propagandize them. But here we are. The government does not represent the will of the people. And if that's true, which is true, then we are not living in a democracy. Because if it was a democracy, the government would represent what we want. This is a problem.
Is it Washington Post? And their motto is democracy dies in darkness, something like that. I feel like with all of the lack of transparency of government spend, which is clearly our biggest issue, democracy truly dies in darkness.
The government should represent us, not dictate to us. That's the way the system was built. That's what we were promised. That's the promise of America, actually.
Well, the Constitution outlines it pretty well, actually.
And when we veered away from that, I don't know if it was the beginning or over time, or I think over time we just got further and further and further and further away from that. But we're at a point now where this version of democracy and government that we're given versus what we were promised, we're so far away that this version cannot survive. Thanks for watching the clip. If you want to see the full episode, click here. If you want to see more clips, click here.